Hello and welcome. My name is Lexi and today we are going through a whole bunch of new makeup releases. I've been testing these things. These are not first impressions, so I've been going through these for a while now. We have the new Gucci concealer, so I've been wearing that for the week. We have the Pat McGrath Eye Primer and the SUQQU Eye Primer. We have the new Givenchy liquid lipsticks. We also have my final thoughts on the Guerlain Powder Foundation. This is the Parure Gold Skin Control Foundation. And I did have a video with first impressions of this, so I'll leave that linked down below. In case you want to see, there's like a wear test and stuff in there as well. So we're going to take a look at these items as well as the SUQQU Anniversary items. So I received 2 of the SUQQU Anniversary items in PR, but I did purchase the rest of them, or I reserved them for the launch date. So I will be getting those. There will be a part 2 with the rest of this collection. So if there are any requests for comparisons or anything, please let me know and I can include those in the next video if I have those items. So we're going to start off with the Guerlain foundation. So this is our packaging here. You can see we've got a gold fingerprint magnet, of course, but very much like the eyeshadow palettes, but this time we are opening horizontally. We have a mirror. There is a puff in here. And as I mentioned, this one is not as firm as some that I've used in powder foundations. This is a little bit more, a little softer, a little more flexible. Then you have this, and this container, it is refillable, so you can purchase the refills. They are plastic, and it just clips in. So you can see there are some clips right here on the side, so that will just clip in when, for the refill there. So this is shade 0.5N, and there's 7 shades on the Guerlain website for the US right now. I just want to show you, I was just swatching this, but look how much powder kick up there is. So that's something we're going to talk about in a second. But there are 7 shades available. There are 10 shades in their promo photos, you know, where they do the computerized arm swatches. So there should be more shades coming, but I don't know when. So let's go ahead and take a look at the clips while we talk a little bit about this product here. So we have a 1-year shelf life. This is made in France. Again, I have shade 0.5N for neutral. And I would say it still leans warm, you know, just like the Guerlain, their recent like terracotta foundations and everything runs a little bit warm. So I think for me, actually, something in the cool range probably would have been a better option. They are not available yet. There should at least be a 0C and a 1C according to their promo photos. So this is actually going to be a little bit of a yellowish peachy shade. So we've got, you know, I wouldn't call it orange, but you've got a little bit of yellow and a little bit of peach kind of mixed into this shade as well. So it is going to lean a bit warm, but it's a decent shade for me. As for the texture, as I mentioned, this is a pretty powdery powder foundation. So if you like to use a brush, as soon as you dip a brush into this, no matter how gentle you are going to get a lot of powder kick up. So when I do use a brush with this, I end up with powder kind of like all over like my vanity or my lap, depending on how I'm holding it. So it is best, if you want less mess, definitely use the puff that it comes with. And I do think that it applies best with that puff as well. So I find this foundation to be a little bit on the dry side. I have been using this for a couple of weeks, you know, on and off. And last week we had cooler temperatures. It was beautiful weather, you know, not too humid, really nice, you know, like spring, fall type temperatures. And it looked fine, but if my skin was a little dry, I could see dryness on my skin, you know, towards the end of the day with this powder foundation. However, this week has been incredibly hot and very, very humid to the point where we have, you know, heat advisories and everything again. And the powder foundation really melts into my skin with the heat and the humidity, and it ends up looking really nice that way. So I think this foundation is really going to depend on what type of skin you have. People with oily or combo skin will probably like this powder foundation more so than people with drier skin types. Or if you live in a more humid, you know, tropical type of climate, you know, this foundation, you know, even on dry skin, I think it would be nice because it's not actually drying out your skin. But, you know, if you're not getting added moisture throughout the day from your skin, then it will tend to look a little bit dry. So overall, my personal thoughts on this foundation, I think it's okay. It's an average powder foundation. I find it to be very similar to the Dior powder foundation. And yeah, you know, I just think it's just okay. And I do wish that they had a better more expansive color range. I feel like a lot of companies don't really put in a lot of effort into expanding their powder foundation ranges. And I wish they would, because I would love a fantastic powder foundation with a great shade match. So let me just go over a few details from the brand here. And so this is directly from the Guerlain website. And according to them, it says Parure Gold Skin Control is a compact foundation that perfectly blends makeup and skincare, incorporating the two pillars of the Parure Gold Skin Foundation formulation into its ultra-fine texture, a hint of 24 karat gold teamed with a duo of white peony extracts. Its formula ensures 24-hour wear and 24-hour comfort. Thanks to an extreme infallible and no transfer hold, complexion remains matte and perfectly blurred throughout the day without a cakey or no mask effect. An exceptional makeup result which in no way compromises the skincare properties of the formula. The veil of exquisitely soft matte powder feels like skincare on application, infuses perfectly with the skin to make it more beautiful, smoother, visibly plumper, and more radiant. Perfectly unified, the skin appears revitalized and regains the radiance of youth. And this was tested on 26 women who self-scored their evaluations. Now, my thoughts on what they have claimed in here, I do definitely see a blurring effect with this powder foundation. I think it's very nice for that. Actually, for this powder foundation, I don't find that there is 24-hour wear. Perhaps if you do not have anything come in contact with your face, then that might happen. But for me, you know, just like blowing your nose or, you know, eating dinner, if you use a napkin or something like that, you know, I don't find it to be transfer proof. I have found that it does wear off on my cheeks throughout the day, depending on the weather. You know, so if I am outside in that heat and humidity, yes, it makes the foundation look better, but it does wear a little, you know, the wear time isn't as great in that case. So I think, you know, there are some caveats there in my opinion. And overall, for me, I think that personally, this foundation, as I mentioned, is okay, but what I would like to use this for is not really a powder foundation on its own, except occasionally, you know, occasionally I'll use this, but I do tend to prefer my liquid foundations over this one. I think it just looks a little bit more natural on me. So what I'd like to do is actually use this more as a setting powder because it does give a great blur. And, you know, if I use just a light dusting of this over my foundation, I think it will, you know, provide a little bit of coverage and, you know, also some blurring effect. So, you know, if you ended up with this foundation and you don't love it for a powder foundation, there are definitely other ways you can use this. This is also a great base if you need a powder base on your eyes. This is great for camouflaging, you know, any veins and stuff you can see through your eyes. So that works well. And it's also nice as a setting powder under the eyes. So there are definitely different uses for this, and I will probably utilize this powder more in that fashion and just occasionally as an all-over face powder or foundation, just because it's a little bit dry for me, particularly as we're heading into fall and winter when my skin is a little bit drier and we don't have quite as much humidity in the air. So those are my thoughts on this foundation. I'd love to know if you've tried it, what your thoughts are. And yeah, let's go ahead and move on. So I have a few powder foundations that we are just going to compare this with. This is my favorite formula. It is the SUQQU Glow Powder Foundation. This is shade 210, and unfortunately it is a little bit too deep for me, but it is the best powder foundation formula. You can use it dry or wet to create like your own cream foundation. It's just so versatile. It melts into your skin. It doesn't look like powder. So you can see how that shade compares. This is a little bit deeper. You can also see this also has some peachiness to it, even though it's in their cooler range. So it still runs a little bit warm. Then we have the Laura Geller. This is the Baked Balance and Brighten powder in Porcelain. And this is a nice powder foundation. You can see this is going to be a little bit lighter. It's also a little bit rosier, a little cooler in tone, but yet it's pretty neutral. And then the last one I want to take a look at is the Dior. So this is Dior 1.5N neutral. So this is the Dior Forever. We're going to put this one going right down the side. And you can see it's a little bit more yellow than the Guerlain. The Guerlain's a little bit peachier, but color-wise, they're pretty close. So, you know, I would say that the 0.5N and the 1.5N are a pretty close match. Dior is ever so slightly deeper, but I don't think it's a whole shade deeper than the Guerlain. So I hope that was helpful. Let's go ahead and move on to the eye primers. So I did have a first impressions with the SUQQU eye primer. You can see here that it's, you know, a white liquid in the tube, but it is translucent on the skin. This feels like a very lightweight silicone-based foundation. So it feels moisturizing, it is thin, and you know, it does have a little bit of tackiness to it. And if you put powder on that, you're gonna kind of cancel that out a little bit. If you leave it that way and you pat on your eyeshadow, you can really get a lot more color brightening and some grip. If you do want to powder it first, you don't have kind of that tackiness. You know, you can blend out your shadows very smoothly. You get a little bit, you know, better staying time with that, but you're not really going to brighten your shadows as much. And then we have the Pat McGrath Intensifeyes a Longwear primer, and this looks like it's beige in the wand, but sorry, I do have some stains on my hand from lipstick swatches, but this is also actually translucent. And again, these are translucent, not necessarily transparent. So if you have a deep skin tone, you're going to get a little bit, perhaps, I wouldn't say a white cast per se, but a little bit of radiance on your lid from the SUQQU. And if you, you know, the Pat McGrath also offers just slight amount of camouflage on your lids with this shade. But they're both technically translucent, but not 100% clear. So, you know, you have just a little bit of a hue from each of those. So let's take a look at the demos while we discuss these. We're going to start off with the Pat McGrath Labs primer, and this retails for $32 US. And according to Pat McGrath, it is a prep and set eye primer that boosts eyeshadow color and ensures crease-proof, non-smudging, stay-in-place eye looks that last up to 24 hours. And it's free of parabens, phthalates, sulfates, SLS, and SLES. So they are also describing this as a translucent finish primer suitable for all skin tones, proving itself to be a resilient ally. It extends eyeshadow wear and reduces creasing. It also blurs skin texture, creating a polished look that lasts up to 24 hours. I have to say, I think this is a really nice texture. When you're comparing this texture to the SUQQU, again, you feel a little bit more of a thin silicone texture, whereas this, you feel a little bit more of an oil content. It also doesn't feel quite as refined as the SUQQU. You know, it feels, there's no grittiness or anything like that, but texturally, it just doesn't feel quite as fine as the SUQQU. However, it really does give you a nice blurred effect on your lids. The SUQQU does as well, but I do have to give the edge to the Pat McGrath because I do think there's a little bit more blurring with that. And I think part of that is also due to the fact that we have more of a beige shade to it versus the white, which gives you a little bit more brightening with the SUQQU. The SUQQU Eye Enhancing Primer retails for between $25 and $30 US, depending on which retailer you use, whether or not shipping fees and so forth are kind of added in there. But this is described as delivering maximum results. This clear silicone gel improves color saturation, enhances pigment adherence, and prevents any color settling into creases, all while supporting your eyeshadow's original texture. With a soft, smooth feel, this primer wraps your lids in nourishing comfort thanks to its jojoba seed oil and squalane fusion. What's more, delivering a smooth satin finish, it can even be used on your under eyes before applying your concealer. Long-lasting, sumptuously smooth finishes in just one swipe? Yes, please. So I have to say, I think this is a really nice Texture, again, between the two formulas, the Pat McGrath and the SUQQU, this one you can definitely feel the silicone more, whereas the Pat McGrath, you can feel a few more like oils in there, but they both, you know, smooth out very nicely on the lids. They both will give you a slight blurring effect. And I would have to say that, you know, as you're looking at the wear tests and everything, you can see that they both definitely boost color of the shadows. They help adhere the pigments, and they do help prevent creasing. I would say that they perform this task pretty comparably between the two of them. So I would say that they both resist creasing just as long as the other. Now, just a few details about the packaging. The SUQQU Eye Primer has 6.4 grams of product. It has a 1-year shelf life, and it's made in Japan. The Pat McGrath has 5 milliliters of product, and it has a 1-year shelf life. It's made in the US of US and imported ingredients. So taking a look at these, you can see that the SUQQU is actually going to be a little bit shorter. This is also more lightweight. This is lightweight plastic, whereas this is going to be a glass tube. But I wanted to show you the applicators between the two of these as well. So we've got a doe foot applicator between both. You can see that the Pat McGrath here is going to be angled, and it's also going to be a little bit wider, whereas the SUQQU, you can see that it's very bendable, but it is going to be kind of a rounded one. I find that really comfortable and easy to use. The Pat McGrath is also comfortable and easy to use, just a different shape. This one doesn't have quite as much flexibility, but you do have more of an angle to get into tight spaces. So those are kind of, you know, the differences between the two of these. I think they're both great primers. And yeah, these are both ones that I would continue to use. So let me know if you've tried either one, what your thoughts are on those, and I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Let's go ahead and move on to the Gucci concealers. So I picked up 2 of these. I mean, the packaging's gorgeous, but I've always had kind of a hard time color matching with Gucci. And I feel like they've got an expansive range, but it's kind of hard to tell exactly what you're going to be getting based on the picture. So I picked up 2 of them. They're both described as fair. And we have 11C, so this is going to be slightly cooler. And then you can see this is ivory with a little bit of rose. And then this one here is 14N. So these are both in your fair range, but our neutral here is definitely going to be a little bit warmer. So it's actually a little warm for neutral, but definitely neutral leaning warm. I wouldn't say, I can see why it's still in the neutral range. This is definitely going to be cooler. It's more of a true ivory. And I think the shades, you know, depending on where you're putting your concealer, makes a big difference. So we're going to look at some demos and wear tests right now while I talk about these. But let's start off with the lighter one here. So 11C Fair. This one here is going to be really nice for brightening under the eyes. If you don't have a lot of deep circles, this will definitely give you some brightening, a little bit of light reflection, and it has a little bit of a matte luminosity to it. So overall, I think the concealer performs pretty well. You know, there's no like obvious creasing. It lasts all day. I would say that it's medium coverage though. And if you're looking at the deeper shade, the 14N, this one, if you do have deeper circles, this will help camouflage them a little bit. There's definitely some oxidation with this though, and it does lean warm. So if you are neutral or cool, you might even want to consider ranging into the cool line versus this neutral one, because it definitely can, it's great for camouflaging, but I do notice, for me at least, I can see the concealer afterwards, even after it's blended out. I can just see the color difference. It looks a little too warm for me. So what I do like to do with these is kind of layer them. So they work well mixed as well, but when I haven't been getting a lot of sleep. So the 14N helps really camouflage those dark circles, and then tapping over it with the 11C adds some brightening and kind of cancels out a little bit of that deeper shade. So, you know, that's kind of a nice way to use this. These concealers go on very nicely with both fingers and brushes. So I do think this is a nice solid concealer, and I will continue to use this one, but it still hasn't necessarily outranked my favorites. You know, I definitely have some favorite concealers that I tend to just, you know, love and reach for the most, such as the Valentino and the Chanel Sublimage and so forth. So let's take a look at some color comparisons. This has now been on my hand for a few minutes, so I just want to show you our level of oxidation. It hasn't completely dried, but you can see how much the color change has occurred already. So it definitely is going to get deeper. Let me just show you here the 11C. And you can see that there's not quite as much of a difference with that one. The 14N definitely oxidizes a bit more. And let's look at just a few shade comparisons with some other ones. So we have the new Surratt concealers here, and I have kind of similar shades from here. So this is shade number 1. You can see this is going to be brighter, whiter. It's definitely cooler in tone. This will give you a little bit more of a pearly effect. And then shade 3 is going to be a bit more beige, but you can see this is lighter, it's more neutral. So it's definitely not as warm as the Gucci. So I do tend to prefer this shade 3 here versus the deeper 14N from Gucci. And let's just look at a couple more. This is the Tom Ford Shade Illuminate. This is shade 0 and 0 Blanc. And this is a pretty light ivory. It has a little bit of warmth to it, but you can see it's going to be warmer than the 11C. And depth of color, though, is pretty similar. The Valentino, this is in shade LIGR2, and I love this one. I'm picking up another one when the Sephora sale starts. You can see this is going to be peachier, but it's a cooler peach than something like the Gucci here. It's kind of like a pinker peach. And this is going to be a brightening concealer. So it's just like a great everyday one to reach for. The Givenchy in N95. This is one that I really like to use like kind of like all over my face for spot concealing. And you can see color wise, it's a little bit peachier than the Surratt in shade 3. And it's definitely going to be cooler in tone than the Gucci in 14N. And just one more, let's take a look at the Chanel Sublimage. And this is going to be in shade 02. So this is, you know, their BR02. And you can see this is going to be lighter and rosier. You can see it's cooler in tone than the Gucci, but it is fairly close. So if you like 02 in the Chanel, I would definitely consider the 11C in the Gucci. So let's go ahead and move on to the SUQQU Anniversary collection. So thank you so much to SUQQU for sending me these items from their anniversary collection. This is their 20th anniversary. They've been doing fantastic launches all year. So you can see for the anniversary here, we have kind of this soft gold compact here. So it is going to be something special. Everything in the anniversary collection is limited edition. So there are 3 different, these are the face powders. They can be used as an all over face powder or a highlight. This one here, shade 103, and this is your like lavender shade. And they recommend this one actually for like under eye brightening. You could use it as a highlighter or all over powder, but their #1 suggestion for that is the, you know, the under eye use. And then there are also 2 palettes like this. This is 102. 101 is going to be an orangey coral palette. And then there's also a lip kit that features 4 different lip finishes. So there's like their new gloss, their lipsticks, and so forth. And there's one for each season. So first we have this intense kind of peachy shimmer. This is the pink palette, but you can see this is definitely a peachy shade here. The second shade here is going to be a cream shadow. And again, this is going to be a pinky peachy shade here as well. This can be used as an eye base. You can really buff this out. There is some tackiness, so you can use it kind of as a base to the other shadows, or you can use it to just get a subtle luminosity. You could use it on the cheeks as a cream blush, and then you could even top it with a powder blush here. So many uses for that. Next up, we have a pink shade. This is going to be a cooler tone, kind of a cooler tone berry burgundy shade. And that's going to be a matte. And then we have this shimmery satin here. Now between the 2 of these, the first and the 4th shade, this has more intense shimmer. The first shade is like super intense shimmer. It is smooth. It goes on with a wow. This has sparkle and shimmer as well. You can see it's going to be a warm pink, but it is definitely, it's still super sparkly, but not as sparkly as that first shade. So those are the 4 eyeshadow shades. And again, you can use them in other places on your face as well. The blush here, this is actually going to be a mix of formulas. So they have the Pure Color blushes, which are your ombre, really soft blushes, and then the melting powder blushes, which were discontinued, which are more oil-based and creamier. This is an in-between formula here. So this is not in any of their other products. And you can see this is going to be a soft, dusty rose blush, a little bit more tea rose, but mixed with some dusty rose. So let's take a look at some eye swatches, or well, demos and swatches here while we talk about this. Like all SUQQU products, these are made in Japan. The eye and blush compact in 102, that has a 1-year shelf life. And as I mentioned, we do have another palette that I ordered that is more of an orangey coral base. Now, although this is technically a pink palette, 2 of these shades here are really more in the orange family than the pink family. So shade 1 and 2 in the eyeshadows are definitely going to be more peachy orange. And then the bottom 2 are more pink. So the matte is going to be cooler in tone. The sparkle 4th shade is definitely a warmer pink, but we do have a cool tone pink shimmer in there. So it makes it slightly neutral there. The blush, I think, is a really beautiful mid-tone rose mixed with a little bit of a dusty hue there. So I think it's a really beautiful palette. Again, this is a collector's item essentially because it is part of their 20th anniversary. But just like with other SUQQU items, you can actually, these things are all removable, refillable. Not that they sell refills of these shades, but this compact you can totally use again later. We do have the holes on the back where you can pop things out and you can put in some other products. So that's something good to know. We do have magnetic closure here. We have a full-size mirror. And I just think it's a really gorgeous palette. The one item that really, I really love in this palette, and it's not even so much the color, it is the formula of that first eyeshadow. That is such an intense sparkle, and you need like no pressure whatsoever on your brush to pick it up or to apply it, and you just get like intense shimmer. I'm also very impressed with the blush formula being in between the Pure Color and the melting color blushes. I think, it's a really nice formula. I'd like to see more of those in the future. I don't know what they're doing for holiday, but I would love to see, remember those blush or cheek palettes that they had a couple years back? I would love to see this formula in those. I think that would be fantastic. Now, as for the face compact, and, I don't really think of it as a face compact. When I think of a face compact, I'm not thinking of just a single powder. To me, this is just a pressed powder. But I have shade 103. So there's 101, which is kind of your champagne gold shade. And that's really intended to be kind of buffed all over the skin for a soft, subtle glow. It's very light. I did order that. I don't have that yet. And then we have shade 102, which is a rosy pink shade. And that's intended more for like highlighting in strategic areas of the face. Again, you could use it all over as well. But its intention is for highlighting purposes. And then 103 here is going to be a soft lavender shade here. We definitely have some blue in here. So as you can see in the demos here, this works really well for under eye brightening. So it works great for that. It sets your concealer really well. You could use this as a highlighter on the face if you want to cool something off. Now, if you want to buff this all over, I like this buffed better with a looser, fluffy brush. So in the demo here, I use the SUQQU F09, which is a very fluffy brush. This will set my makeup. It gives me just a slight hue from the lavender for some color correction, but nothing major, nothing noticeable really on the skin. And then I also showed you this, kind of buffed into the skin using the SUQQU Face One or Buffer Pro. And that you definitely see the purple. So depending on your skin tone, that could work, but it might also not. So if you're somebody who has some of those like warmer tones and the purples just make you look a little bit more sallow, this would not be the best application for that powder. I actually think it's a little bit too much buffed in all over my skin that way. But you can also see there is a subtle glow with this. So it's not as noticeable when you're using the light fluffy brush, but when you buff it in, you definitely see a little bit of radiance from this powder. And so I think it's really beautiful. Another way that I think this powder would be great to use is buffing it in on the cheeks and then applying your blush. So I think it'll give you a really nice subtle radiance underneath that blush as well. It gives you a little brightening on the cheeks, you know, to kind of emphasize that area a little bit. But if you top it with, you know, a different blush shade and so forth, you're basically having like a halo for your blush. I think that's a really nice application for this as well. So I did order the other two. I can't wait to see and compare those. I will definitely have those up in another video, but thank you so much to SUQQU for sending me these. I'm very excited, and I have to say their launches this year have just been stellar. So let's go ahead and move on to the Givenchy liquid lipsticks. So here are the Givenchy liquid lipsticks. We have this beautiful ombre glass container. So this is the actual color of the product inside. So we go from black to clear. You have the black leather cap here. This one here is shade 9. I want to show you the applicator first. So you can see we have this hourglass applicator, and I have mixed thoughts on this applicator. I think it's okay. I actually really like having this blunt tip here because it really helps you get that blurred lip look. But the hourglass shape, I get too much product buildup in there. So the intent of this is for the indented part. That's where you're gathering more product so you can put more on your lips. But for me, it's just a little bit too much product on my lips if I use it that way. So I think I end up just using the blunt tip all over, really. But I do like kind of going around the outline of my lips with this blunt tip to give it a blurred effect. So this is shade number 9. And unfortunately, it doesn't have the color names on here. So I'll have to put those on the screen if you're looking for the actual name. But you can see that this is going to be a peach. So it's kind of like a soft medium peach. I think it's a really pretty shade. It is a little bit warmer than I thought it was going to be from the pictures. The shade that I have been reaching for, two of the shades a lot, 10 and 53. So here's number 10, and this is what's on my lips right now. You can see this is a soft, you know, rosy shade here. So I think this is a really beautiful shade. This is probably going to be my most used. Just trying to get a little more product there. So this is number 10. And then I also picked up number 12, which is a really beautiful soft caramel shade. Really nice for the fall. And you can see we've got some brown in here. This is going to be a little warm. It's close to neutral, but it's warm. And it's just a really nice soft caramel. So I really like that one as well. 53 is another one that I've been using a lot. So 53 and 10 are the two I've been using a lot. And you can see that this is going to be more of your rosewood. So I think it's a really nice classic rosewood shade. And then I also picked up 42, which great berry shade for the fall. I mean, look at that. So you can build this up and get a really deep berry purple. But if you shear it out, you're getting more of this vibrant purpley pink shade, this beautiful fuchsia. So these are the 5 that I picked up: 9, 10, 12, 53, and 42. Let's take a look at the lip swatches and the wear tests while we talk about the details. The Givenchy Rouge Interdit Cream Velvet Lipsticks retail for $42 US. They've got a range of shades. They are available at pretty much, you know, a lot of different retailers at this point. They took a little while to roll out, but they're pretty much everywhere now. And according to Givenchy, these are a highly pigmented matte velvet liquid lipstick that offers up to 12 hours of wear. They have shea butter and meadow foam oil in there to give you comfort and moisturization. And according to Givenchy, this new Rouge Interdit Cream Velvet Lipstick offers multiple looks, from a soft focus blur to a more defined matte blurred sophisticated lips. The long-lasting lipstick comes in 8 shades, ranging from iconic reds to natural nudes and perfect pinks. The lipstick is infused with shea butter and meadow foam oil that provides up to 12 hours of hydration, moisture, and comfort to the lips. The ultra sensorial formula combines a light velvety whipped texture with incredible color payoff for a blurry matte finish. Now, my thoughts on this, I have to say, I really love the way these feel on the lips. They are weightless. You don't feel it. You know, I think they're very comfortable. They actually remind me a lot of the Burberry. So I spoke very favorably about the Burberry liquid lipsticks that also just launched. These both feel very similarly on the lips. So I find them to both be very, very comfortable. I would have to say though, I would not give this 12 hours of wear. And you can see in the wear test here, there's significant fading after you eat a meal, particularly if you have any oil or grease in your meal. But there's definitely significant fading there. With the deeper shades, you can get a little bit of a stain left, but you know, that's going to be true of pretty much any lip product. I would have to say that I would give this more about 8 hours of wear, but it's going to fade during those 8 hours as well. So that's kind of my thoughts on these. I have to say I really like the way they look. I really like the way they feel. So these are definitely ones that I would repurchase again, but I would not necessarily consider these long lasting. I actually think I get a little bit better wear time with their bullet lipsticks versus these. So let's take a look at a few of the Givenchy bullet lipsticks. All right, so let's start off with a few of the Rouge sheer velvets. So these are a bullet lipstick that will give you that soft blurred effect. This one here is number 10, beige nude. And let's put that next to this number 10. But you can see that this is actually going to be a little bit more of a combination between 9 and 10. So it's definitely warmer, more beige than the 10 in the liquid lipstick, which is definitely going to be rosier. And then real quickly, let me just compare the deep velvet in number 10 as well. We'll put that right here. Again, you've got more of this rosy nude. I'll put it over here as well so you can see that. It's definitely going to be closer to the liquid, but it's still going to be more beige, more nude. It doesn't have quite as much pink in there. So just something to note, the colors are not an exact match. Now, a few other sheer velvets. This one here is number 16. I just wanted to compare this one just because I think, you know, it's a little bit more pink, but it's warmer than number 10. It's definitely lighter and peachier than number 53. This is 52. I just wanted to compare this to see if it was close to any of these, but no, it's definitely more brown. So that's not going to work. It's got more red in it than number 12 for sure. And then this is a deep velvet in 38 Grenat Fumé. And this is going to be like a purpley shade. You can see this has more eggplant in it. It doesn't have the fuchsia that we have in shade 42 here. So those are my comparisons. I would love to know if you've tried these, what your thoughts are. Let me know about everything that we featured today. And thank you so much for tuning in. Overall, I would have to say that we've got a great batch of things. I kind of went through my thoughts with each of these things. So I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you very soon. Have a wonderful day.